Hey everybody, this is Leo from the Idea Center. Today we're going to be going over how to get started on your first 3D print. If you want to get going on one of our loaner laptops, we have a couple devices up at the cart up front. Just go ahead and unlock the door, unplug a laptop, and then bring it to a comfortable place to work. Let's get started on where to download your first 3D model. So the best place we find a lot of our models are on two sites. We find a lot of models on Printables and Thingiverse. Both places are just a forum for people to upload 3D models. Let's see how to download a model on Printables. We're going to look up the Aquaflyer. So to download something from Printables, I just pull up the page I want. I'm going to click download. We want STL or 3MFs. We don't want G-code yet. My downloads. It saved a zip for me. I'm going to unzip that in a minute, but let's see how to download something from Thingiverse. I already know what I want off Thingiverse, so I'm just going to go straight to Aquaflyer. I'm going to download all files. It's going to wait for a little countdown, so let's skip this. And I'll save it to my downloads. The way I'm going to get to my downloads is by just typing in downloads. The way that we unzip these zipped up folders is by right-clicking and clicking extract all. You can just click extract, you don't need to change anything here. It should open it up, and now we have access to our files. We're going to drop it into our slicer. PrusaSlicer has this cut through it. It's black and orange down at the bottom. The way that we put in our part is by clicking the one option we have available to us, which is just add. And we'll put our part in. You'll kind of click through things. You'll go from files to your part. And we'll have something like this. Just again, since that might have been a little fast, there might be some stuff in here that we don't need yet. I would just go straight to files every time, and that's where you're going to find your 3D object. This is an STL file, but you can also have OBJ, 3MF, and all these other types. I'm flying around by holding click. This is my left click. It lets me kind of rotate around the object, and right click allows me to pan around. You can zoom in using the scroll wheel. There's some tooltips down here. You can read them and close them when you've read them. You can hit this button up here for a copy and paste. You can also use Control-C and Control-V. One important thing is learning how to scale. There's two options for scale. This makes it bigger or smaller. You can click this button right here. This will show you all the kind of like dimensions and points to grab from. I like grabbing a corner and stretching it like this. I can get really specific if I don't want to be using this tool, and I can just say, okay, I want my Aquaflyer to be, say, 2 by 2. I type in a 2 here, it'll scale all these numbers appropriately. Now it's about ½ an inch tall. You're going to want to get familiar with a couple of these tools on the left, like rotate as well, pretty quickly. If you click rotate, you can grab an edge and start turning things. I'll play around with it here, although I don't think I want to print it like that. I want to print it on a really flat face, so I'll put it back to the way it was. Position myself, and I'm going to click the next tool, which is Place on Face. Place on Face highlights a bunch of zones that I can click on here. In this case, I want to click this. That'll rotate it automatically to sit right on the bed. There's this tool up here, it looks like a lunch tray, where you can click Arrange, and it'll try to find some space for all the parts on the plate. Hopefully you feel pretty good using the PrusaSlicer software. Let's figure out what this software is for, and I'd like you to follow along so we can tune the print settings on the right side of your screen. We can't just take models off the internet and throw them right on the 3D printer. We have to write instructions for the 3D printer to follow. In this case, we're developing layers. So we're slicing up our model into pieces that we can build up bottom to top, starting with STLs and 3D objects and ending up with G-code. You're going to put this on your USB, and that's how you're going to start your print. Your first setting is your layer height, print time, print setting. Figure out how long you want to be printing for and to what level of precision. So we have pretty low detail prints, and this is most of what we're making at the Idea Center. Oftentimes, you don't need any crazy high detail. This looks like an awesome frog. You can see all of its layers, but in certain situations, you might want higher detail, in which case you can slow things down, go for structural or detail settings. See, you can make out the face a little bit better, actually. It comes in handy, but for the most part, I would pick the fastest speed or draft option you can get your hands on. This one took 20 minutes, this one took an hour. You can see what you're getting out of it. Finding your filament type is just picking up whatever you're getting off of your printer or whatever you're getting out of the drawer, and making sure you're reading the label accurately. We have PETG and PLA all over the shop, and you wouldn't want to accidentally select the wrong one. So take out your filament, read your label, and see, okay, my glow-in-the-dark filament is PLA. Make sure you select PLA in this case. However, if you're grabbing filament off of a printer, make sure it doesn't have anybody's name on it. This doesn't have anybody's name on it. I'm not seeing any Sharpie anywhere. So I know that this is the shop's filament. This is free to use. So please look out for anybody's name before you start printing. Telling your printer type is pretty straightforward. It's written all over the machines, especially on the control panel. But just in case, since we're upgrading to some Mark IV's soon, you're going to want to really make sure that you select the right one. This, for example, is the Mark IV's. It says it up here and it says it on the next extruder. This says Mark IV and it says Mark IV on the next extruder. You can also check that you're working with an XL. It should be written everywhere at these points though. It's not always easy to tell if you need supports on your print. Usually in the description, wherever you downloaded it from, you can read if someone advises you to use them or not. We always want to try to print without supports. These frogs were done without supports pretty easily. Our printers can support overhang up to a certain point, and then you're going to have to turn them on. In this case, this guy's nose would be floating up in midair, and we can't have it printing on nothing. So we put in these green supports when slicing. This is support from the build plate. It's cheaper and faster than everywhere supports. This has a little bit of a higher success rate, but it's a lot harder to clean up. In the future, we can start getting into organic supports, which are new and they're excellent for making quick, cheap, and easy to remove supports. Infill is something like this. You won't always see it when you're done with your print, but it's always inside of everything that you make. For example, I have no idea what infill I use for this frog, but it's pretty light. I've got a feeling I probably used about 5% infill. If I used 100% infill, it would be really heavy. It would be full of grids and unnecessary material. But if I'm just making cool models and toys, we really do stick to only about 5 to 10% infill. It makes your print really fast, and it's still pretty rigid enough in case you drop it or knock it against something. Brim is just one last checkbox, but in case you're making something on stilts or really thin supports, think about maybe printing a horse or something with legs. It might be good to turn on brim if you find that whenever you're trying to print your part, it's sliding off or coming off the print bed. If you're just having failures, it's something to try out. So knowing all we do about our settings, I'm going to do one last walkthrough. I'm going to bring in my 3D Benchy from my downloads. This is a file I found online. I already know that I want as fast as I can, so largest millimeter at speed. Perfect. I'm going to discard. I want generic PLA. That's what I'm printing with today. I'm going to print on a Mark IV with an input shaper nozzle. That's what we have in the shop here. I want no supports, and I want as low of an infill as I can get. We're going to go 5%. I'm going to go ahead and slice it now. I'm going to get some warnings about support stuff, but I already know from the author that I want them off. Great, here it is, stability issues. I can ignore this because I already know from the author I want them off. The way things are looking, this is going to take about 40 minutes. I can take a look at the cross section to see what my infill looks like. It looks really low. I just have barely enough grids to hold everything together. This is exactly what I want for a quick, fast first print. Now that we're set up and sliced on the software, let's go pick out a printer. Right away, we want to remember that we don't have any clutter around the 3D printer. There's a lot of moving parts, especially around this bed. This heat plate gets really warm. So does this heat bed. It says do not print directly on this surface. Do not touch this surface. Another hot part we never want to touch on this printer is the nozzle. This little tip part gets very hot. It's what essentially is melting the plastic and spitting it through. All these fans are helping regulate it, but it'll still burn you pretty bad. Last comment about this plate. If you've been warned to use hairspray, please spray it on this layer and then do not flip it. If you get hairspray on this print surface, you're gonna have a lot to clean up. It's gonna be a big mess. So please keep it on the correct side. Also, whenever you put your PEI sheet down, you can't set it down like this on the heat bed. You have to line it up with these metal studs like that. You have some guide marks to follow. Basically, this is good, this is not good because it's raised up on that little stud. This is not good, it's not touching the studs. And this is not good because it's upside down and the notches are on the wrong side. Be careful. So I found one that isn't running a job. This other one over here is already running a job. It's already started something. So I'm gonna take the one that's off. I'm gonna reach around to get the power button back here. It's this red button. All right, screen's coming alive. I'm checking the filament up top to make sure it's free to use shop filament. It's PLA, this purple stuff. If the printer you want to use today already has someone's filament on it, go ahead and watch our short video below on how to change the filament out. Otherwise, go ahead and bring the USB back to your laptop. Since we're all done slicing, I'm going to go ahead and export the information onto this thumb drive. It should be a USB stick, should be labeled D drive. Go ahead and click OK to any of the warnings that come up, and make sure you click this little arrow to eject the USB drive safely. I'll get a warning over here to make sure you did it right. As soon as I bring it to the 3D printer and plug it in, it'll give me a preview and I can start the print right away. As you get more and more experience with 3D printing, we're going to get you going on collecting 3 stamps for your download. So that anything you download off of Thingiverse or printables, you'll have to make 3 models yourself for.